My secret ability to summon a sequel for something by spontaneously getting into it has never gotten its own video. However, as evidenced by the birth of a random out-of-season Splatfest and the announcement of Splatoon 3 within a month of me getting into Splatoon January 2021, and in June, 3 days after I got into Metroid Samus Returns and started imagining like, oh, what if Mercury Steam did another game? 3 days later, they announced the triple cancelled Metroid Dread was coming to our reality. So when I tell you I randomly started to dream about Ritual of the Night 2 a couple weeks ago, and I just became a Portrait of Ruin Stanny 4 months ago, I'm locking it in. I summoned this game. Thank me. Thank me very much. A dark, magical, mystical Metroidvania. It feels good to be back in the saddle doing my kind of classic shtick again, huh? So, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night 2, yes, Portrait of Ruin 2, or Dark Souls 4, Scarlet Engagement got dropped, and I've now scooted about the internet finding all the information I can, so I thought I would do a little report on what we know, what I feel about it, and just kind of my thoughts about the game overall. So, this one is different. Very different. This one takes place in the 16th century, vaguely, they say, around 200 years earlier than the other games we've had, so we don't have Miriam. Miriam's not here. It's very different. It's a brand new story that's meant to provide some kind of foundational lore for the whole series in its own separate part of the timeline, so we're pioneering something. It's supposed to give Roten some kind of new meaning, and it's got this ethereal castle as the focus, which, like, I don't think is the name of the Shardbinder castle thing from Roten, but I don't know. In my heart, I feel like they're connected, so watch that space. There are 2 heroes, which, according to blog posts, are 1 Leonardo, or Leo, Brandon, a very young knight from the Black Wolves, and Alexander Keitler, or Alex, the last remaining member of a White Stag party sent to investigate the ethereal castle and defeat its demon lord, which they were not able to do. Alexander, or Alex, is a kishi in Japanese, which is like also knight, but Leo is also, he's a senshi, which is a knight. Kishi is a knight, but let me Google the difference. Okay, my friend told me that it's horses. Horses are the difference. A kishi rides horses. And sometimes there's kind of like a Western versus Japanese, you know, European versus Japanese knight split with the senshi, kishi, a la the 2 brothers from, you know, the big brothers. You remember the ones from Fire Emblem Fates. You got the samurai and the horseback, the European guy. Maybe that's a good mental image for senshi, kishi, but then at the same time, I don't know, like senshi's very generic. I don't think it's Japanese specific. Also, this kishi thing, we're in Europe. we're in Europe now, even though technically there could have been at this time period, in the 16th century, there could have been kishi in Japan, but I don't think Alex is Japanese. Also, there aren't any horses in this game yet, so I am just gonna say they're gonna be localized as knights until the day a horse enters the picture. Also, did anyone else know that Alexander is a dude? I thought that Alex was a girl from the trailers. Like, I thought I saw like the booby breastplates, and no, if you watch when they cycle through all of his costumes, they're super flat-chested, but just like for some reason I was getting super lady vibes. Not even like the pretty makeup and hair. I just really felt like they were trying to actually have another male-female pair, but apparently no. I'm gonna put him on gender watch for a bit, because I'm just gonna be the least surprised person ever if he does like a masked Marth kind of gender reveal party at some point in the game, and it's like, actually I'm a woman. Mulan would be more culturally relevant, wouldn't it? I think you would know Mulan a little bit better than Lucina. Would you know Mulan better than Lucina in these corners? God, I really don't know. God, it's been 12 years since Lucina. Anyhow. Now, during gameplay, you control both characters in the buddy system, patent pending. You can use them both simultaneously with a kind of auto co-pilot thing going on like Portrait, but I also could have sworn that I saw somebody say there was going to be couch co-op. I've told people, like, yeah, this is going to have couch co-op, that's why it's so demanding or whatever, but apparently no. I guess it's just the Steam page. There's nothing on any of the official announcements about it. There's a bunch of people begging for co-op to be added, but only Steam, and Steam could actually be referring to, like, some side mode a la Roten, so I'm pretty confused. I think a lot of people are probably a little upset that there's no co-op, because it just kind of looks like that's the gist, but I don't know. My opinion is that because they tried to do co-op for Portrait back in like early development, and they promised and didn't deliver on co-op for Roten, if they pulled off co-op, which obviously would have been on their mind developing the 2 game, they probably would have made a big point of like selling it to us as like the main gimmick by now. But considering they've been quiet, I don't know, either they fumbled it or there's no co-op, which is a different kind of fumbling. It's a bit of a bummer. So what do we know about how the buddy system will impact the game? Apparently, all of the equipment can be freely moved around between both characters, which is very interesting. Some of them changes your appearance, as you can see in the trailer, which is nothing new, but I mean, that also confirms that they're not going to be different gendered, because they probably would have gender locked the clothing again to prevent anything fun. But no, I guess they're sharing a wardrobe. But more practically, my concern would be, does this mean that they're going to play the same versus being a mage and a fighter? I don't really know. What we do know is that combat is going to run off something called the Epiphany system, which is pretty much meaningless, so we don't know anything at all. Maybe like you unlock weapon techniques with one character and then get martial arts moves or magic with the other character. I'm literally just guessing at this point from the trailer. If I'm dreaming, maybe there's customization where you learn skills for whatever tools and techniques you've been actively using. That's like my favorite RPG feedback system. And then if you have that, you could do custom builds every single run, right? Because you would have 2 different characters you can mold in clay style like any way you want, and then do it differently the next time, and then do it differently the next time, and mix with different synergies. That would be really fun, but I am literally just fantasizing off of something we know nothing about, so stay seated with your seatbelt fastened for the Epiphany system going forward. According to the lore of Bloodstained Scarlet Engagement video game, our supposed yaoi pair need to gather magic devices to defeat Demon Lord Elias, or Elias? Probably Elias, I think. Standing in your way are 6 demon dukes? My translation says dukes. I've never seen the term demon generals in its Japanese form before. I have to assume that this is demon generals, because demon dukes is the stupidest thing ever. I just don't believe it. I'm pretty sure they're 6 demon generals, which is sexy. That's a fun idea. But dukes, I'm not accepting that. They probably won't even call them anything cool at all in the localization. They'll just be called like the bosses or like the nightmares or whatever. But you have to fight these 6 demonic dukes before you beat Elias, which is maybe not revolutionary or crazy, but I don't know. They're pretty cool. It's like Mega Man. It's like the demon robot masters. You know, they got aura. I'll say that. That's fun. Also, Alex is probably traumatized. Yeah, Alex just lost all of their friends in this place to these demon generals, so that might be bad. There's human sacrifice going on. In here. That's going to be dark. Maybe this will be a dark game. More confirmed facts. The map will be the biggest in the series. They're still really emphasizing the exploration. Voices will be in English and Japanese, and 2-player combat is, unsurprisingly, the heart of the game, so what you see is what you get. There's also a natural day-night cycle, which we saw somebody kind of manipulating in the trailer, but I didn't expect it to function on its own. It seems like every area will have, multiple visuals, which is pretty darn cool. I feel like that's a very good use of a 3D engine Metroidvania map. I'm looking forward to that. That is genuinely something I've not seen before. The ability to improve your character through crafting and cooking is also back, which is very heartening. We see Alex eating some of Shutaro's iconic curry in the trailer. Thank goodness. I really do love those stupid systems. I love just putting Bloodstained crack into my brain with those dopamine numbers for just hours on end. It's wonderful. We're not deviating too far from the original in some ways. We get to the deepest depths of knowledge that are out there. Epic Games is going to have an exclusive interview coming out later this month with the Curry Sage himself and Igavania, Mr. Iga. But for now, I've just been scumming around the 505 PlayStation blog post, the Epic Games post, which has a decent amount of information, and an official Reddit post from 505 where they answered a couple fan questions. The fan wiki notes that we don't know if Michiru Yamane is back yet, and nothing here clarifies that. Some people were saying the music sounded like shit and not her, but I don't know if I can call it that early. I'm not like a Michiru Yamane like huge buff or anything. I've never analyzed her style. The fan wiki also corroborates that Alexander is a boy, which I have not necessarily accepted myself. But moving swiftly along, according to scumming around the Reddit post, 505 Games has clarified that Circle of the Moon 3 is hard to guarantee, as they see it as a project of a whole other company, quote, whole other company. So it sounds like they're leaving it up to Inti Creates. If they want to help, they can help. If they don't, they don't. Kind of a bummer, but it's good to have the transparency. I guess it does make sense if Inti makes the games. A little bit more weighty, they say there are currently no plans to do a Switch 2 version, which was a little upsetting, but then they later say Switch and or Switch 2 is TBD, which sounds less terminal. I am super iffy on whether I would even buy a Switch or a Switch 2 version of this game. Of course, if it ran well on Switch 2, that would be great. I just imagine Switch 2 is on track to sell much better than PS5, Xbox Series, or, I don't know, hardcore graphics cards. I feel like that would be the best route to get it in the most people's hands, even if I am a huge Switch 2 cynic, but it seems like the most popular place to play this will be computers, but the specs on Steam are still TBD, which is a fact that I know, which betrays where my personal head is at regarding actually being able to play this game in 2026, doesn't it? So, the prospect of Roten 2 was always going to be enough to get me excited. I am definitely excited, but thought number one on my mind is, how will this game work as a more graphically advanced version of Roten that wants to render two, maybe even two playable characters on the screen at all times? Like, they didn't really inspire confidence with the way that they made Roten, so I'm a little worried about them biting off more than they can chew and putting it out of reach of most players financially. The team said before any of this that with the next game, they were inspired by Final Fantasy VII Remake to make more expressive, beautiful character models for their cutscenes, which we can see, absolutely, but putting more and more into the fidelity and the prettiness means that we're going to be snapping back to these stiff, budget-looking, classic Roten vibes during the actual gameplay, which is just kind of like, really? Like, I'm just very iffy about them aiming for such high fidelity models and graphics if it's like not really the point of these games, and it might even drag down the performance and cause another messy situation where some ports aren't even that good. And I'm just worried that folks aren't going to be able to get their hands on these games if they're actually not coming to PS4 and Xbox One, or is that what it is? Xbox One? I don't fucking know. I've never looked at one of those things. I don't know. I don't know where everybody is. I don't know how many of y'all have PlayStation 5s or better graphics cards than I have, but I just spent over $1,000 on a low-end gaming laptop, which can cover most of the video games that have ever been made. It's very strong, but it's not quite PS5 strong. And a bunch of people are about to go drop their whole wallets on a Switch 2 this year because Nintendo cocaine, and like, my laptop is stronger than a Switch 2. I know that fact, but it's not PS5 strong, and I think a lot of people are going to be in a similar boat. It's just a little bit nerve-wracking, especially considering after 5-ish years of laughable support for current-gen consoles, this isn't really a great time to go and buy one. Like, oh, I'm gonna go buy an Xbox Series for Roten 2 because of Roten 2 in this terrible collapsing games economy. It's just a little bit of an iffy landing. So, all that aside, I will someday have something that can play this game. I unironically think about PlayStation 6 somewhat frequently since Astrobot came out, because hell if I'm gonna buy a 5, but 6 with back compat, maybe we're talking. But anyhow, how about the game itself? I am also a little bit dubious about how much I am going to like it, at least in the short term, although there are way less worries in that specific department. It's all a little bit alien, isn't it, without Miriam and without the familiar trappings. I didn't really look at this and think Roten sequel. It's so different that it's just Bloodstained 2. It's a very different kind of sequel. It's a real big leap. I mean, gone are the days of fruity colors and booby anime nonsense and just the wackiness of that era. Bloodstained is much more sober and decidedly dark fantasy, like a FromSoft game here. It's just business suit. I don't know. It's like serious time. The monsters are very cool in a new way, and there's a lot of that, like, aura coming off them, but you know, it's not the kooky bullshit. It's monochrome, it's kind of edgy, it's silver and knights, and it's just very, very different. None of this is what I usually go to a Metroidvania for, you know, like, I like a good boss, I really do, but, you know, I don't grind them for 36 hours and tell my friend, like, I spent 5 weekends on the Copper Demon and now I'm a real Fromborn. Like, it's just not my jam, and I don't imagine that these bosses will take up that much of the game, but like I mentioned, thinking about them like robot generals is kind of helping, because I think they're kind of the standout of this trailer, you know? I will say the character designs, as much as I'm saying they're not my thing, they're a bit more clean, they're a bit more to the point. I've always said that Bloodstained character designs are not always my bag. They can be a little bit messy, they can be a little bit over-designed here and there. I think like Zangetsu and Chibol are the only ones that I'm like super diehard for, and it's taken time for me to appreciate like crazy, busy designs like Miriam. So I like the designs, but no, the bosses are cool, and those Final Fantasy VII expressive cutscene intros we see are very cool. It's just my thing is like, how do I get myself to care? Like, you know, Metroid Dread had very cool cutscenes and very cool bosses, but they were supporting a cool game with its own super athletic, hardcore, fast-paced gameplay, you know? Having a game that's just big, sad castle with scary bosses, is it gonna hold up? I don't really know, but at least they're investing in it. It's cool, but, you know, big titty Bara, big Bara titty Zangetsu. These characters are not, of course. This is its own cool angle, and it's taking kind of Castlevania's more outright dour vibes to the forefront, which maybe as director, Shutaro Ida has always wanted to do, I don't know. But of course, you know, serious gothic fantasy is also a big part of the tradition, and okay, it's time for that to come out and play. I think once I see this reimagined as a silvery, edgy Circle of the Moon 3 type game, it will make more sense to me. Once there is some connecting factor bringing it back to the Roten era, it'll make more sense. I'm just picturing like 8-bit version in my head, and I like it so much more. It already makes more sense, but I don't know, like, will that happen? Will it be some kind of 32-bit, 64-bit, like not Roten, Rondo, Rondo style remake. That would be really cool, and I'd be very happy to see that happen. But for now, I don't know, it's just new and it showed up one day and I don't know what to make of it. One thing I'm trying to remind myself is we really shouldn't have been so surprised they pivoted away from Miriam, because even if she's their Simon Belmont, or Alucard rather, that team never stuck to the same character for very long, you know? Soma got 2 games, and those were very special, just Soma things. Alucard appeared in multiple games, but he never even got to be a protagonist for a second time during that run. So it's not terribly surprising, but, you know, not having any connective tissue like Dracula or the Castle or the Vampire Killer Whip, you know, I am really gonna be holding out for that lore revelation, that fundamental connection they're talking about. Like, I need a shard binder, I need something, I need some connective tissue, personally, just because that's me, and I want to see the series continue to grow. I would respect it, you know, if they didn't do an actual Curse of the Moon game, because maybe even putting them into a fanficky, time warpy bullshit thing with Zangetsu would be too much, you know? Curse of the Moon is his name, that's his series, so I could see never introducing them to him. That'd be fine, I get it. We got the era of trains with Zangetsu and Miriam, and then the era of Plague or whatever with Leo and Alex. That's cool, but I don't know, I guess it's just gonna have to keep growing and I have to see more before I can wrap my head around it. But I'm hopeful despite the odds. I am hopeful despite the odds. I have one question, one like thing that I'm going to be looking to the interview and the trailers going forward about. It's, will this be a good atmosphere for sinking in and cooking curry and grinding items and just like chilling out the way that Roten was? Roten was a really nice vibe for doing the gameplay that it had. It was cool, it gave you chills here and there, but it was a little bit goofy, you know, it knew how to like break up its own seriousness or whatever. Like it was a good time to sink into and grind for dozens of hours. Like it was very comfy, it was kind of like a funny dream. Will this grim, dark atmosphere be fun to grind in? Will it be fun to like craft items and just, you know, do nonsense inside of? I have a feeling, you know, the Dark Souls fans are spamming in chat like, yes, of course it will be, but, you know, it's just, I have a hard time understanding that just from my own experience, and I just was, in hindsight, I guess, very happy with Roten in the end. It took me a long time, but that was a good marriage of themes and vibes and gameplay, which maybe I'm a little skeptical of this game balancing, but whatever. So is my first impression a little negative? Yeah, but it's mostly just due to this unfortunate gaming landscape issue and my personal, you know, not quite being there with grim fantasy, that kind of thing. It's, you know, whatever. I'm definitely going to give it a go. It's going to be fun. I'll be clutching my NVIDIA GeForce RTX Mobile through 3060 with an amount of RAM that I definitely remember, and just praying, looking at that Steam page, that I can run it and I can cover it when it drops next year. I really want to, but we'll see. Hopefully I don't have to wait till I get a whatever console to play it, and hey, 2026 is a long time away, and eventually I have to get into Dark Souls. It's right there. It has to happen. I've got the Ender games wrapped up, ready to play at any time. Well, Lily's isn't wrapped up. Lily's is open. I can play that whenever I want to just be miserable and look at the black, rotting reality of man. But Magnolia is in purple, sparkly wrapping paper, suffocating and sweltering in a cupboard in my apartment. And there's a story behind that.